everybody. I'm Dave,
I'm John.
and this is the Coffee and Capes podcast, where we are a couple of enthusiasts of both coffee and geek culture, and we just try to have a good time talking about it.
True. Very true.
You have found us, obviously, because you're listening to this, but let's get all the propers out of the way. John, where can people find us? Because we've added to the list lately.
We have added to the list. So the first thing is you can listen to us at Spotify. You can find us on iTunes. If you want to see our faces, I guess you could go to YouTube if you're watching this right now. You can go and check us out on YouTube. We also have an Instagram page at coffee_N_capes. Please come give us a follow. That way you can drop into comments and let us know what you thought of the episode and other episodes you might like us to talk about. We also have a Facebook page up as well. Coffee N, the letter N, Capes on Facebook. You can look us up. And then if you need to drop us an email or you want to drop us an email, you can send an email to supers@coffeeandcapes.com. So we're kind of all over the place, all your normal channels. We'll have a Twitter page live soon with random thoughts, I suppose. I don't know what you do with the tweet anymore.
I'm a big fan. I have enjoyed Twitter over the years, less so the last couple of years, but 10 years ago, Twitter was a lot of fun.
Yeah, apparently now the thing is the TikTok, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like we're too old to try the TikTok thing, at least for now.
Yeah. I
find
have
a
to mess
magic
with it for
elixir
work purposes, but
yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. So, coffee, what are you enjoying today, John?
Well, in my there we go, Star Wars coffee mug, I am actually drinking some Black Rifle Beyond Black coffee today. Black Rifle, started out several years ago kind of as a like small batch niche roaster, and they've grown. Good for them, right? It's always nice to see small businesses do well and start to expand, and they make some great coffee. So that's who I have today. And as always, I've got to give a shout out to my friend Nicole and her business partner Sarah at Ladybird Provisions, because I put their coffee bombs in every coffee and they're absolutely fantastic. So what about you, Dave?
Well, it turns out I also have a Star Wars mug going with great quotes from Star Wars there.
Excellent.
Yes, and inside of it, I'm enjoying some Blue Mountain blend coffee from Jamaica, which is some of the best coffee I've ever had. Yes, it purports to be rich yet smooth, full-bodied taste of Jamaica, and I would say it's called the perfect balance of rich flavor, sweet aroma, and moderate brightness.
Moderate brightness.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the moderate brightness part. Yeah, I'm not sure what that means, but it tastes really, really good.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that's what all of my middle school teachers wrote about me and like my report cards. Exhibits some moderate brightness, but hard to focus. So yeah, I get it. I can associate with that.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
So we love coffee, but we love geek culture even more. Somebody recently, though, asked me when I was telling them about our podcast here, like, what does that mean, geek culture? And so I was thinking about it a little bit, and I was thinking back to, when we were kids. You and I we're in our late 40s. Yes. One of us later in his 40s than the other.
Not by much, though.
Not by much.
Yeah.
But back when we were kids, geek stuff was not cool. Right? Like, I had a big collection of action figures, like the Star Wars ones, of course, but like the lesser known, like bigger, more posable, like comic book action figures, DC stuff and Marvel stuff. I had a bunch of them. And I, maybe had a couple of friends who would come over and play when I was little, but I don't really remember anybody being like, oh, hey, comic books, let's talk about comic books and how cool those are. Like, it wasn't really a thing. And I remember like being super excited whenever you would see some version of a comic book thing show up on a TV show, right? Whether it was, and this is how old I am, like we just saw Electric Company just celebrated its 50th anniversary, I think. And remember Spidey?
Spider-Man.
Yeah, those
Yeah,
Spidey little segments on Electric Company.
those were so cool.
So great,
So cool.
right? Or the Spider-Man
Super
cartoon,
Friends.
Super Friends, right? The Spider-Man, Spider-Man.
Yeah, yeah. Super Friends. We got the Wonder Twins, who, one
Yes.
was the form of like a bucket of water,
Right.
and
Because that strikes fear
whatever.
in the hearts of criminals everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was cool. It was cool,
Yeah.
right?
Do you remember the Fantastic Four show that for whatever weird, dumb reason they replaced Human Torch with some like robot pet thing?
Nope. I don't
Okay.
remember that, and I'm really
Yeah.
glad I didn't. But
Yeah.
when we get into this topic,
Yeah.
that can
Yeah.
it's when we get into today's topic, it'll definitely, like, that group will come up.
Yeah. So like there, it just seemed like often. I swear there was like I have this vague memory of a Captain America, I think, made for TV movie in the early 80s that was
Yeah, there was.
just terrible.
It's horrible.
Right. And so that's what we were used to, that the TV adaptations of the comic book characters that we loved were awful.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, one of the great joys of this era right now of geek culture is, one, we're kind of ruling the world, which is sort of fun and cool. And two, that we get to see these characters we've been reading about for so long brought to life in TV shows and movies that are terrific, that are amazingly well done.
Yeah.
Right. And just what a huge shift that is.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons we're so excited. And like, I mean, there's so much to talk about now because in some ways, us comic book geeks are ruling the entertainment world, which probably isn't all 100% great, but I'm not complaining.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. Like, growing up, you went to comic book shops. I can remember the comic book store that I went to in the 8th grade in Albany, Oregon, that was above a different store and almost like an attic. It was like an afterthought, and all the boxes were on the floor because it was such a small space, like just such a limited space. And you had like maybe 5 people that were in there on a regular basis. And
Yeah.
that was kind of it. And really the most acceptable form of like geek culture and sci-fi was Star Wars, right?
Right. Yeah.
Comic books hadn't hit their stride, although we started to see things like, the Jim Lee era of stuff come through, and, art was changing, storylines were getting a little bit more, I guess it's skewing a little bit more adult, like the Mutant Massacre through X-Men, those kinds of things. So, but as time's gone on, we're in kind of a different golden age of geek culture right now, right?
Yeah.
Marvel Cinematic Universe, the DC Cinematic Universe, Star Wars has expanded, Disney Plus has come along and launched a whole series of shows, right? There's just so much out there, and it's, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good.
Yeah.
Right. But the acceptance of it, like, you don't, and we're both, like you said, we're both, late 40s, and so our view of this might be a little bit different, but with the acceptance of this, it seems like the kids who got picked on a lot for enjoying comic books back in the day, right, have a little bit more social acceptance today.
Yeah. Sure seems
which
that
is
way.
which is wonderful to see.
Right.
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 And for old guys like us who, love talking about this kind of stuff over coffee, and have kind of lived through a rich history of comic book and geek culture, and can remember things like Star Trek with William Shatner on TV,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the amazing sets that existed. Buck Rogers. I don't know
Oh
if
my gosh.
anybody's going to remember Buck Rogers. So all these battles, the original Battlestar Galactica, which was like, man, when I saw that on TV on like Saturdays, I was like, oh. For us, like, who grew up with that, and that love for that kind of culture, like, this is like a dream come true, to be able to watch all these movies and see all this stuff brought to life on big screen. So and to see the stories evolve and the art evolve, and that kind of leads into, the history of it and the evolution of it and what we've seen on screen kind of leads into today's topic, Dave.
Exactly. Yeah. So back in episode 3, which, if you haven't listened to it, we hope you'll go back and take a listen. It's a little pretty entertaining. We called it Who's Got the Look? As in, like, who's really embodied, what actors have embodied their character. And so this is kind of a tangent from that, or a continuation, if you will. But what are some of our characters that have been embodied, that have been filled by more than one actor, in some cases, many more than one actor. So that's what we're calling this episode, Famous Franchises, Different Faces.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start, John?
Man, I feel like there's so many places we could start, right? But I think since we both have this one on our Zoom screen, I feel like it's a natural place to start with Batman.
Yeah.
Right. And the first memory I ever have of Batman being on a screen was Adam West.
Absolutely. Same.
Right. Absolutely, campy, ridiculous. Even had, like, when somebody was supposed to hit somebody, you got the big bam pow on screen, and then all of a sudden it cut to, like, somebody laid out on the floor, because back in those days, like, that's how they handled violence on TV.
Right.
And it was super campy, right? It was super campy and fun. And who doesn't love Adam West?
And when I was a kid, I wasn't aware enough to figure out, like, I don't think I knew what campy was. It just was fun.
It was just a great time
watching it.
Yeah, it was a great time. And then we went without for a long time. I mean, we had the cartoon every now and then, right? A cartoon might pop up, although DC Cinematic Universe didn't kick off for quite some time.
No, but
the
Super
DC
Friends at the time.
Yeah, Super Friends, right? We had Super Friends, but we didn't have, like, the more modern Justice League cartoons until after we got Michael Keaton as Batman, which I don't know about you, but I remember seeing that announced and thinking, Mr. Mom?
Yeah. Like, the gung ho guy? What?
Right.
Like,
Beetlejuice?
Right. Yeah. Like,
This
I
is
like his movies,
Batman?
but he's not Batman.
Yeah, right? Not Batman. Now, I don't know about you. I'm curious your take. I did get really excited when they showed the Batmobile.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
I was like, whoa, that's cool. But I'm curious, right? Because obviously now the view of Michael Keaton as Batman changed instantly in the film, right? I mean, instantly.
Yeah.
He did such a good job, in my opinion. And they kept him through 2 movies. But I'm curious, Dave, what was your thoughts on Michael Keaton?
Well, the movie itself was good enough that it checked all the boxes, right? And so whatever flaws might have been there for Michael Keaton as Batman, I didn't notice them, because the movie was just so much fun to have. And, like, as you said, the first time at that point, like 25 years since we'd had a live action Batman rather.
Yeah.
The Batmobile was so cool, and the effects with the the remote control for the car, or just the I remember it felt dark and gritty at the time. You go back and watch it now, it feels much more campy.
Sure, but
especially Nicholson's role. But at the time, like, the all black suit.
Yeah, it was great.
And he's got kind of that grim approach. I remember finding it a little odd that Bruce Wayne was suddenly wearing glasses. Like, I don't know what that was about. Like, he needed readers, apparently.
Yes.
But we'll go with it was part of a disguise, I guess. But
and he did a great job through 2 movies.
Yes.
And Tim Burton, the second one wasn't bad. By any stretch. I don't think it was as good as the first, and I think everybody kind of agrees with that.
Right.
And then we got, like, that the studio couldn't let Batman go when Keaton left, and they just went rapid succession after that of actor after actor to try and keep the franchise alive. We got Val Kilmer,
who again is an actor that, especially in the 80s and early 90s, I loved.
Phenomenal actor. Yeah. He did a great job. We got who followed.
George Clooney. Well, let's Val Kilmer for just a minute though. Like, I remember thinking Val Kilmer was pretty good as Batman and pretty bad as Bruce Wayne.
Yes.
And I know now it's kind of dumb, but I was always thrown off by like the blonde. Like Bruce Wayne is not supposed to be blonde. Like that's just so weird. Like I know now it's just dumb, but still, like it was enough to kind of take you out of.
Yeah, but I think that's fair, right? Because it took me out of it too. I was like, meh. As a Batman, once he put the cowl on, he was great. He did a really good job. As Bruce Wayne, me, right? And that's okay. We've got a history of somebody nailing one half of that persona like really well. I like, we go into George Clooney.
Yeah,
right?
I think it's kind of the opposite there. I think Clooney was a pretty darn good Bruce Wayne.
Yeah,
and pretty darn bad Batman.
Yes, but then again, right? This goes to writing and direction as well.
Oh,
because it's not like either Kilmer or Clooney are bad actors by, they're not.
Right.
They're lauded as actors for a reason, right? But yeah, Clooney's Bruce Wayne was solid. And he put on the cowl and you were like, dude, you are a guy at a costume party trying to be cool right now. And that's kind of a bummer. And again, I don't blame him.
Right. It's not his fault that they put nipples on the bat suits or gave them weird coloring or whatever. Like it.
Yeah. Like you got like different, like it was so. Was that movie directed by Joel Schumacher?
It was. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure I remember that he's on record saying, he just wanted to make a movie that his grandkids would enjoy.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. That's exactly what he went on record saying. And
okay.
Cool. You made the Power Rangers Batman.
Right. Yes.
Like good for you. Your grandkids probably loved it. And that's wonderful, right?
I remember I was working at a bookstore at the time, the late lamented Walden Books.
Oh, yeah.
And there was so much merchandise in the store leading up to that movie, the Batman and Robin movie. And like every type of book, like, oh, here's the novelization, here's the junior novelization, here's the picture book, it's everything. Everywhere. Yeah. And then to have the movie just be so schlocky and bad and just,
it was bad.
Yeah.
Like, and it hasn't aged well if you've ever gone to gone back to try watching it again.
Yeah. So years ago, my kids would, when we actually still have a working VHS. Have I mentioned I'm old? And that was like a tape that they found. And I'm like, yeah, it's okay if you watch this, when they were pretty little. So they've seen it a couple of times actually. And you watch, you're like, oh my gosh, just every single piece of dialogue is just some terribly, terribly corny joke.
Yeah. It was
joke.
Just, in the holy rusted metal Batman. He's like, what? Like, it's holy, rusted, and it's metal. It's like, oh, you guys bombed that.
I'm gonna put them on ice.
So bad. Yeah. Arnold Schwarzenegger is So, but we're not here to lament the movie.
No.
So we move on past George Clooney.
Yeah.
Right. And who was our next live action Batman?
Well, Christian Bale, of course.
Christian Bale. Yeah. And Christian Bale, right, falls into that, like, did one side phenomenally well. And the other side, you're just kind of like, okay, he wasn't bad. Like, he wasn't bad, I don't think, in either, but.
Interesting. I don't know if I would have put him there. So which way do you lean on that one? When you say that, what are you thinking? Which side was better for you with him?
I actually liked for him his Bruce Wayne to me was fantastic. Like, his Bruce Wayne to me was pretty dead on, like, was able to easily flip between playboy philanthropist, like, I'm Bruce Wayne, I have money, and I'm just going to be all carefree and all this other stuff, and slightly could come off as arrogant, but well-meaning. And then his personal conversations with, like, Alfred, he was very, very thoughtful. Right.
Yeah.
the Batman side, the only thing that I'm gonna say on the Batman side of things, that there were two, right? One, the physicality, right? Batman's, and this was the issue, I think, another issue with Michael Keaton, right? There is a certain level of like physicality that Batman has. The other thing was, after a while, the gravelly voice,
right? Sure.
right?
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
but in all fairness, like everybody ran into that, right? And like everybody up until Christian Bale had like, I'm Batman, right? Or some variant of it, right?
Yeah.
And when we talk about the next person to don the cowl in movies, that changes a little bit.
Yeah. So that's interesting. I would say I probably enjoyed Bale's Batman portrayal a little more than his Bruce Wayne, but I think he was really good at both. Like I do think just what you said about him as Bruce Wayne was pretty good, and he did a good job of. I mean, he really committed to the idea that Bruce Wayne is the mask,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that I
and
liked a
Batman
lot.
is the who he really is at his heart. And the mask within the mask, yeah, Bruce Wayne's the mask, but then there's also there's sort of the two sides of Bruce Wayne. There's the I'm going to pretend to be a carefree, philandering
Mm-hmm.
billionaire, uh, but every once in a while you'll see me set aside that mask and be more real as a person as Bruce Wayne. But even that is still kind of a mask for what I really just want to do is
Beat
go
up bad guys.
beat people up in the dark.
Right, but I mean, and that's, I'll agree with you in that thread, flowed through the movies a lot, was the idea of Batman is, who he really is, and when he takes the cowl off, like he's actually putting on the mask of Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Very, very like true in that series of films.
And I do think his physicality, like he was just big, right? You remember the scenes of him doing push-ups and just physically his musculature, like he's a big dude who made himself a big dude for that role. And it kind of, this is a grand statement, but it kind of redefined how we picture Batman. Like, I don't know. Can Batman be like as skinny as Michael Keaton again?
Yeah, no. And I don't think that, and I think that in the comic books, when you start seeing the evolution of Batman's never been a small character.
Well, true.
Like,
yeah.
He's not a little guy. Like if you watch him stand next to Superman in the comics, like that physicality exists, and it's always existed. And it has to, because he's out there night after night after night doing that stuff.
Right. But we hadn't really seen that on screen before Bale.
No, we had not. So in that aspect, like I thought me personally, I thought, yes, he was better than those that had come before him in that respect, but there was still a certain level of it that I was missing. Like,
okay,
whether it was his speed and the ferocity with which he went through people, maybe that was it, right? But overall, I thought Christian Bale at that point, and still probably is the most well-rounded Batman that we had seen.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say, I don't think this is going out on a limb at all, but I would say Dark Knight is still the best comic book movie that we have.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
And a lot of that, of course, is on Heath Ledger and what he did with Joker there. But just so good.
And so our next, because he's not the final anymore.
No.
Right. And we get to talk about the upcoming, but the next one has, everybody likes to refer to him as Batfleck. Ben Affleck as Batman, right? And I think Ben Affleck as Batman nailed the physicality better than anybody else prior to him. Like he put on serious weight for that role. Yeah. When they showed him fighting, like he was vicious.
Yes.
And strong. And, and we got the voice modulator instead of the gruff voice, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yes, I agree. That's a better choice.
Where I think that he he got kind of short end of the stick was they brought a version of Batman into a universe that it didn't make sense.
Right. I think what they asked Affleck to do, he did really well.
Yes. I think if you had made the
Dark Knight Returns,
the Dark Knight Returns
the Frank Miller,
movies,
the Frank Miller.
yeah, thank you, Frank Miller. I kept thinking of Keith Miller. I don't know why I was thinking of Keith Miller, but the Frank Miller series into movies, which is essentially where Zack Snyder pulled that from,
right,
and you put Ben Affleck in there. Oh,
so good. Like
so good.
That's basically what they asked him to do, was be an older, wizened, kind of cynical version of Batman, and he nailed. The movies aren't really all that good overall, but I think he nailed it.
Yeah, for what he was asked to do, I think he nailed it.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
right,
exactly.
And again, I think he was a victim of the idea being incoherent with regards to like, you know, what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
And granted, the Zack Snyder version of the movie was infinitely better than the Joss Whedon version of the movie. Yes. You know, and explored more and came in to, you know, allow characters to expand more, and it was solid. But he was a man out of time almost.
That's right. Yeah. To put him with a mostly new Superman and a brand new Wonder Woman. Well, new to the world Wonder Woman.
And brand new Flash.
Yeah, brand new Cyborg. Yeah,
Cyborg was brand new. Yeah. And you had old man Batman. Like, how does that team age?
Yeah.
Right. At some point, like, are they all hanging out? And they're like, all right, guys, time to go fight, Lex Luthor and all of his baddies. And they look down and they're like, Bruce, how's the chair holding up?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Do you need us to push you? I can go at less than super speed because last time it caused problems with your colostomy bag. You know, but that was the issue that I had with that as it went. And, you know, Ben Affleck catches a lot of grief from people as not being a solid actor, but I disagree. I think he's done some not so great stuff, but when he has really honed in, I mean, if you've ever seen Argo,
yeah,
like, he's phenomenal, and he directed that. Same with
didn't he win an Oscar for that or something? Or
he did. Yeah, he's won a couple Oscars.
Sure,
you can't really
nominated?
pick on Affleck. Like,
I mean, in the sense that, like, just because you won an Oscar doesn't mean you're fantastic. Like, lots of,
but he's won two.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I think he's often enjoyable, and I think as Batman, he did pretty good. Bruce Wayne maybe leaned a little too heavy on the grumpy and cynical, but I mean, that's a portion of the character too, and that's probably who he was asked to play. So
right, that's what he was asked to do. And then still to come.
Yeah.
And if you've seen the previews for it, just so we're all clear, just so everybody on the podcast knows, we're trying to ease Dave into the idea of watching previews for movies because he has historically not done this.
But I tried to avoid them because I've found too often you see what you see in the trailer, like, either spoils something in the movie, or like it's the one really good joke and they show it in the trailer and then it doesn't land as well in the movie. So I've been trying lately to avoid trailers, but I will admit I've seen a few trailers for The Batman.
Yeah, and let's talk about this casting. For me, went all the way back to Michael Keaton. I went the glittery Twilight guy.
Yeah, get the bleep out of here. You cannot.
Yeah, right. I was on that train with everybody else. Yeah. I was like, no way. And then some people started to say, have you seen him in these other films?
And mostly I would say, no, I haven't seen that film. No, I haven't seen that film. Oh gosh, right, no, I haven't seen that film either.
And they you know, and all those people are like, hey, you should try and check them out. Like, here's a series of films to go and look at. And if you're not aware, like, he's been in a lot of movies outside of Twilight. Right. Like, a lot. Like, he's a well used actor, and some of them are very dark. Like, yeah, very, very dark.
Yeah. So, and then you see some of the trailers for the Batman, and I'm pretty convinced he's going to do really well.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I know that there have already been kind of some things that have made fun of it, but we've had so many times like somebody going, "I'm Batman," and his "I'm Vengeance" thing really,
Yeah.
you know, I like that they're pulling this Batman from like the idea of Batman Year One comics,
Mm-hmm.
right? Uh Less detective at that point in his life as Batman, and more just kind of exercising his abilities from a physical sense, right? But
Yeah.
developing his detective skills and having and being put in situations to have to hone those. Uh, yeah,
Which
I
of
think
course, Batman Begins borrowed a lot from
yeah,
year one
yeah.
story. So it'll be interesting to see how those differ.
Now, my question is this in the same universe as Joaquin Phoenix's The Joker?
Hmm. Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I do think the when you brought up the I Am Vengeance reminds me immediately of the Batman the animated series from the
Mm,
early 90s,
mm-hmm.
right? Where part of that opening sequence, he said, I am vengeance. I am the
Yeah.
night. Like that's and just how good that was for so long.
Oh yeah. DC animation really was a step above Marvel animation for a really long time,
For sure.
like a
Yeah.
really long time. I don't think, if we're being honest, like I don't think I've enjoyed Marvel animation on the level that I've enjoyed DC animation until What If.
Right.
Um,
Yes.
right, and What
Yeah.
If was we've talked about in previous episodes. So if you're listening to this, you're curious about our take on What If, go back and listen to the other one. Um, but yeah, it's the Batman portrayals, and there have been so many.
Mm-hmm.
Probably one of the best, most out of character Batman voice actor portrayals is Will Arnett as Batman in Lego Batman.
Oh, so perfectly uh
Hilarious.
yes, hilarious. Like such a perfect lampoon of the worst impulses of the Batman character.
Just fantastic. Like,
So great.
hats off to Will Arnett.
Yeah.
Like,
What's the
so
little
good.
song he sings? Darkness, no
Yes.
preference.
Yeah, it's so good, so good. um and if we go down the road of like animated Batman, I think we're gonna be just talking about Batman forever.
Right. Because like
So
10 different actors have voiced him in the various animated
yeah.
versions.
So maybe now's a good time to shift, right? And I
So well, before we do so, what's the final word on Batman? If you had to pick one actor, who do you want to be your Batman?
oh, that's tough. If so, I think it's a little situational for me, right?
Okay.
If we're going with the Frank
Cop
Miller,
out, but okay, go ahead.
yeah, I think if we're going with like the Frank Miller Dark Knight Returns universe, give me Ben Affleck.
Mm-hmm.
Great job.
Yeah.
If we're going though for a bigger, more kind of mainstream Batman, and by mainstream I think we're talking about like the storylines that flow with like the comic book history and everything else, like Christian Bale at this point.
Yeah.
Right, easily Christian Bale at this point. I
Yeah.
still love Michael Keaton. I'm excited to see Michael Keaton return as Batman in the
Yeah.
Flash movie. That'll be so cool. And you know, the others who shall not be named, uh, their portrayals I don't ever want to see again. I'd like to see them play other characters. I like them as other characters, but not Batman.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I'd say Christian Bale, right?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
about you, Dave?
I am right there with you on both counts there. with as much as I love Christian Bale, I'm gonna keep an open mind, and I think there's a possibility that Pattinson overtakes him for that more mainstream Batman.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how Pattinson does.
Yeah.
Right. I'm curious to see.
Next year, right? We get that next year?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, next year.
All right. Well, who's next?
Well, we can go one of two ways, right? And I feel like this is going to end up being one of those that we revisit from time to time because there's a long list.
Right.
Right. There's a long list. And maybe we just roll this through the Batman theme.
Okay.
And let's talk about the Joker.
Oh, all right.
Because we've had now multiple versions of the Joker.
Yes.
The original in the Adam West series was I'm drawing a blank. Not Romero.
Wasn't it?
Was it Romero?
I thought so.
Oh man.
That's the name that I went to in my head. If only we had a way to check these things out.
Dave's our fact checker, everybody. So when we get stuck, Dave immediately goes into fact checking.
Yeah, I can't stand not knowing.
Yeah, again though, right? His portrayal matched the theme, the feel, everything of that series, and was campy.
Yeah,
great.
Cesar Romero.
There you go. I keep thinking George Romero whenever I say Romero.
Oh, sure.
Zombie guy.
Different person.
Yeah, and that's why I was like, man, that's wrong. So Cesar Romero, great job. Right, for what he was as a foil for Adam West and the leader of kind of the group of bad guys that existed within that universe.
Yeah,
within that series. Dave, but who's up next after him?
Well, that would be Jack Nicholson, wouldn't it?
I believe so. What was your take on Jack Nicholson?
I mean, at the time, it was great. Like, and look, that hit right in my wheelhouse. I was in '89. I was like a junior or a senior in high school, and then fast forward like 2 years, and honest to goodness, in college, me and some buddies, we watched Batman over and over and over again. And I'm no joke. I could pretty well at one point quote the entire movie from beginning to end.
Nice.
Like it's insane, like how much we listened to and watched that movie. And for sure, like you get the three of us in the room, the three buddies that would watch it, or 3 or 4 or 5 of us, whatever, we could absolutely come up with the whole thing. So I mean, I've spent a lot of years saying things like, my balloons, he stole my balloons. Why didn't somebody tell me he had one of those things? Like, so I have zero ability or interest, honestly, in being objective about it. Like, that movie just, it still resides in a large portion of my brain, I think.
That's fair.
Yeah. And, I think Nicholson did a pretty good job of adding some danger to the character, right? Mm-hmm. He's still kind of silly and kind of funny in a couple of parts, but then every once in a while, just like random violence for no reason whatsoever. Right. Like, you ever dance with the devil under a pale moonlight?
Yeah.
Ask that of all my prey. Like, what? That doesn't mean, what does that mean? And while you're thinking about that, he shoots you and you're dead. Right. Like I appreciate the addition of some fear and some violence to the character, as like an evolution from where Romero was.
Yeah. I agreed, and it's Jack Nicholson, right? Yeah. Jack Nicholson. And his portrayal of the Joker was, for me, looking back on it now and even then, a little campy at times. Yeah. But again, I think that's Tim Burton. Like, it's just Tim Burton's wheelhouse is a little odd and campy, right? Mm-hmm. You look at any of the movies that he's made.
Definitely.
But to your point, the random violence that, like, all of a sudden, and Jack Nicholson does that kind of stuff really well, right? If you've ever seen a movie, The Departed, right, he just suddenly like snaps and but is very calm about snapping. And the same thing with his portrayal as Joker. Like, the violence was just very there's something about calm violence out of somebody who's very over the top that is
Yeah.
terrifying.
Yeah. That's a great point. Like back to
Yeah.
that balloon scene. Remember at the end of that, he's like, Bob, gun. And he just
Shoots
cold
Bob.
shoots Bob, his main henchman.
Yeah.
Because Batman
Like
got
is
away with the
freaking out about the
right.
balloons.
Yeah.
Like losing his mind that
Yeah.
his balloons are stolen. And then he just calms down and goes, Bob, gun. And Bob hands him the gun, shoots him, and just goes on about the day.
Yep.
And that is to have a freak out about your balloons, right? And then just reach level calm and shoot somebody. Like that is a level of psychosis in a character that you know makes them truly terrifying.
Yeah.
So yeah, I liked Nicholson as, you know, there was a little, it was odd because in the comics, the Joker is never bigger than Batman.
Right. Yeah.
In that movie, the Joker was bigger than Batman. But
yeah,
you know, whatever. We get past it.
Yeah. And you have to remember at the time, I mean, and I don't know the exact order of these movies, but Nicholson had recently in the mid to late 80s and early 90s, you know, he'd played essentially the devil in Witches of Eastwick and played you know, a wolf, like a werewolf,
Yeah,
something in
Wolfman.
the movie. I think it was just called Wolf or The Wolf,
like
maybe. That might have also been with Michelle Pfeiffer, but well, not also
was.
because she was the next.
She wasn't in the first one.
Sorry, but you know what I mean?
Right.
Like he kind of had at that time he was like your go-to guy for
bad guys,
crazy
like,
violent.
Yeah, for crazy violent. Agreed. Yeah. So we got Nicholson.
Yeah.
The next on-screen portrayal that we saw, and I do want to touch on the animated at some point, but let's stick to silver screen.
Yeah.
The next on-screen version we saw, as we all know, was the late great Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
Who, again, the randomness. And the calm, like, demeanor. I still, and I'm getting chills about it now, is the scene in the room with all the mobsters. And he goes, who wants to see a magic trick?
Yeah.
Right. And he makes the pencil disappear because he drops that guy's head into it. Just, ta-da. And then he just sits down and like starts having the conversation. And like somebody calls him a freak and he's like, I'm not. Like, I'm you know,
I'm not. Yeah.
But then he's
right.
Yeah.
I think we talked about that a little bit maybe in the Who's Got the Look episode. But just to reiterate, again, I think part of what the storyline did to aid that was opposite of what they do with Nicholson, where we gave the Joker a pretty clear backstory. The thing that added to me to the effectiveness of the Heath Ledger character was the second time he went through the, you know, I told you how I got these scars. And it was a completely different story. And you understood in that moment, or at least I understood in that moment. It took me till then to understand this guy's bat spit crazy and is not about to tell you the truth about anything. And the truth is you don't know anything about who he is.
Yep. And he has, like, his motivation is impossible to like understand. Right.
Because other than he just wants to see the world burn.
Right. Other than and Alfred nails it. Michael Caine's Alfred nails it and says, you know, sometimes people just want to see the world burn. And it was apparent, right? He wanted to see the world burn and he felt a pull from Batman showing up on the scene. And I think Heath Ledger, there's a piece there that I think gets overlooked, and it's a thread that's existed through the comics for a long time and comes to light more and more these days, is the relationship, right, that exists between Batman and the Joker. And Heath Ledger, right, because it's been brought up, like, the Joker loves the Batman. Like, he's like, he doesn't want to kill the Batman. Without him, there's no Joker. Right. He just wants to see, like, how far they can push each other and, you know, what happens and can he get Batman to cross the line and all these things. And, you know, Heath Ledger demonstrates that in his portrayal too. And even talks about, like, you know, I don't want to kill you.
Right.
Like, I don't want to kill you. Like, that's not what he's trying to do. He's
Right.
trying to see if he can get him to cross the line, if he can break that one rule.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it's such a phenomenal job,
And then
yeah.
And then we got Jesse Eisenberg. Oh, wait, no. He was playing Lex Luthor as if he were kind of sort of the Joker.
Yeah. But
And then
we got the actual version of the Joker.
Jared Leto.
Yeah. Who, again, phenomenal actor. Like,
Can be. Yeah.
I mean, has done some just absolutely amazing like roles. Absolutely amazing. But his Joker, first, the way that they did it up, the tattoos,
Yeah.
the face tattoos,
Yeah.
the gold on the teeth. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
It was so dumb and so bad. Like, and didn't make any sense. So I remember watching, I don't know what like set of videos, like online stuff, people love to make their theories about these things. It is something like this. The website's something theory. The film theory, maybe I can't remember.
Okay.
Like that's it. Yeah. Anyway, like he had a relatively compelling case that the Jared Leto Joker is actually
Jason Todd.
Jason Todd.
I saw that one too. Yeah.
And not the original, not OG Joker, and that's why he's like different and weird and bad.
Yeah, but no matter what, it was for me personally a fail.
Yeah,
because the aesthetic, first of all, was so far off.
So off. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they get the violence part down, but not the randomness and not really the fear.
Yeah.
It was like characters were said they were afraid of him, but you didn't see it in the same way that you could for sure with Ledger, and even really, as we were talking about, with Nicholson.
Yeah, and there's a scene that kind of epitomizes that. It's like the Joker and Harley are sitting in a dance club, with like some other gangsters, and having a conversation, and you're like, this never happened. And then they're outside driving down the road in a purple Lamborghini, and that's not like, it's not a thing. There were just so many inconsistencies in that portrayal and the way that it was written, and
look, it was always going to be hard for the next person
to follow
Heath Ledger.
Yeah,
but man, Leto, that ain't it.
Yeah. But if we progress past the agreed upon unfortunate portrayal of Joker from Jared Leto, who I actually think looks kind of cool in Morbius, but that's a different tangent. Joaquin Phoenix.
Okay. Yeah.
That, first of all, bravo to the studio that greenlit a standalone origin story of the Joker. Wow. Like, never in a million years did I see that coming.
Yeah.
Second, Joaquin Phoenix, super talented actor.
Sure.
Just incredibly talented. Plays a really solid bad guy. I mean, if you don't believe me, go back and watch Gladiator. Just, you want him to die the whole film. You're like, right. Somebody just recognize what he's growing into and just stab him in the face. But the weight loss that he went through, just everything for this portrayal, and seeing really the level of psychosis that existed doesn't get revealed until the end.
Right. Yeah.
Really well written.
Yes. And, spoiler alert here, but I like how the ending picks up a little bit more of because it felt like an origin story. It felt like, oh gosh, here we're going to explain everything away. And then at the end, it kind of pulls that rug out from underneath you.
Right. Yeah. Because you're going through and you're seeing, this just the poor guy who gets picked on and beat down. And you're like, okay, so now we're being put in a position to feel bad for this individual and understand how he gets here. And then the like relationship that he like this beautiful relationship that he has with his neighbor and her kid and all this stuff, and you start like feeling for the character, and then he goes and knocks on her door and she has no idea.
Right.
Like you're like, oh, to use your phrase earlier, he's bat spit crazy. Like,
right.
He is none of this is connected. He has done some horrible things and just lives in a fantasy world where nothing is connected. I mean,
and the thing at the end, right? Isn't it revealed that he wasn't like the relationship he thought he had with the mother-like figure wasn't really his mom? So like at the end, you don't really know anything about the character.
No, you just know that he is nuts.
Yeah.
Right. And has a great capacity for violence.
Yes.
And I think that
so much so
we see, and there's a moment towards the end. Well, it is the end where we see how enigmatic, I'm saying that word wrong. That insanity and that pull that it has on like people, how strong that it like became. And as he stands on top of the car and everything is burning and people are essentially like enthralled by him.
Yeah. Thank God nothing like that ever happens in real life.
Yeah, no, we just don't go down those roads though on this podcast. So, but I, to that point.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's an important word about how easily people can get enthralled by a violent psycho.
Yeah. And, when he comes rolling out onto Robert De Niro's talk show.
Yeah.
In makeup, and he just bombs and goes off the deep end on TV.
Yeah.
Like he has done in the comics a million times.
Right.
That was one of those, like, you're like, okay, this is rapping in a way that like is great. And while it's not on the level of like Heath Ledger's portrayal, I would put him like between Heath Ledger and everybody else.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. And it would be cool to see him and Robert Pattinson end up sharing screen time in like a different kind of DC universe.
Yeah. Just as long as Zack Snyder's not in charge of it.
No.
I've had enough of that.
But Dave, there is a famous actor portrayal of the Joker that I know you're dying to talk about.
There is, back to the animated series, Batman the Animated Series. And I think he did such a good job of disguising his voice. I didn't know at the time right away that Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker himself, is the voice of Joker in that show.
For a long time, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't know how many episodes. What did you like about it though? I mean, your favorite aspect of that? I'm gonna look up how many episodes Mark Hamill was the Joker.
Yeah, good question. What did I like about that? Well, it. I'm trying to look at the timing of when did that come out. Like it came out in '92, so it was before it was before Heath Ledger. By a decade, by more than. Like 15 years. And I think, and of course, that's where it's the animated series that created the character of Harley Quinn. So something about that Joker and the voice, there's a shrillness to his voice that I think gets at what we're talking about with the crazy and the violence, but also the relationship that like he wants the Batman to be around.
Yeah. He doesn't want to get rid of him.
Yeah.
He's not trying to get rid of him. Just so everybody knows, Hamill voiced the Joker in 14 episodes of Batman the animated series, 3 episodes of Superman the animated series, 5 episodes of the New Batman Adventures, 5 episodes of Justice League, an episode of Static Shock, and a few segments in Robot Chicken.
Okay, I did not know that last one.
Yeah, I love Mark
Great.
Hamill. Like he's just all about entertaining and being part of. Yeah, it's he does such a good job disguising his voice. We talked about this in a prior episode, right? That he's a phenomenal voice actor. He's great. We love him as Luke Skywalker. Always will. Always will. And he's just a really nice human being from everything that you ever see. I've never met him, but you just see the stuff that he does. And
his online presence shows.
Yeah, he's very fan focused and
thoughtful,
very
cares about people.
Yeah.
And how many other actors can be both like a super iconic good guy and a super iconic bad guy?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's others. I haven't tried to figure that list out, but maybe there's a list for a future episode.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, he just, such a great job. And so if we're taking the Jokers we just talked about, and looking at, for you, who's number one?
It's Heath Ledger for me. Like, it's not close. I enjoy those other portrayals, but Heath Ledger is far and away best for me.
Yeah, I agree with you. Heath Ledger, like, absolutely. And it's not saying somebody can't come along and do it, but he slid into that role so well,
right?
And he wore it so well. And if you go back and watch the movie, and I did recently, because it's one of those that I can watch over and over and over again.
Yeah,
so many phenomenal moments of his swings from one end of the spectrum to the other, right? Like, just calm, like having a conversation, and then like, woo, like, goes a little nuts. So
and there's, to be fair, there's probably some sense in which his performance is kind of preserved in amber, as it were, because obviously tragically died not long after that, and so this is going to sound terrible, like he never had a chance to do it again and like mess it up or something, you know what I mean? Like, he has the one essentially perfect portrayal, and that's it, and that's all it can ever be. And so it's, I don't know, to use a sports analogy, you're wearing your Red Sox hat, I've got my White Sox hat on. It's like when a player gets traded from the National League to the American League, or vice versa, and their stats for the other league just stay. So like, somebody's hitting 323 in the National League, and then they get traded to the American League. Well, for the rest of the year, they're hitting 323. Like, that gets that stat just stays, almost as if they hit 323 every single day for the rest of the year, so that their stat stays there. Well, it's kind of, I don't know if that makes sense as an analogy for you, but that's kind of, Heath Ledger's performance just gets to stay there as that, with nothing that can come along and knock the average down. And we're better for it in some way. Well, that's true. Like, I'm not saying glad that he's dead, but
not losing him, but
but just that performance gets to remain the pinnacle of what it means to be Joker to me.
And I think with that, like, it's a good place to wrap the episode. We've covered 2 very iconic characters across decades of portrayals, and there's so many more of these that we can do. Right.
Just even with the Batman universe, we could Catwoman, we could do.
Yeah, you got Catwoman. Penguin's gonna, the Riddler's gonna have a new portrayal in the upcoming The Batman movie.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Where it sounds like he's a serial killer. Like, I'm real interested to see how that goes.
Yeah.
So I mean, the Batman universe, but we've got, I know on my list, just really quick ones that we'll do future episodes on, Fantastic Four. That one's been done a couple times, and it sounds like they're going to do it again. Superman, obviously iconic.
Right.
Rich history of portrayal, both on television and, I mean, so many actors, right?
Yeah.
So many television versions.
Right. And if you're doing Superman, you almost have to do Lois Lane.
Yeah, you got to talk about Lois Lane
and Lex Luthor,
Wonder Woman, Spider-Man. We may do that one closer to the release of the new No Way Home movie, especially with the rumors that we're going to see 2 other, prior Spider-Man actors show up.
Right.
And then, the X-Men is another one where we've seen, a couple versions of that now, and it looks like we're going to see more versions of it coming soon. So lots of stuff we can do on this one. I think if people have others that they want to see talked about and discussed, throw them in the comments.
Right. Yeah.
Dave, do you have some on your list that you were thinking about that I didn't hit?
That's kind of, those are the big ones that I'd hit. Was I wanted us to see about some other, if we could get away from the big 2 of Batman, Superman, or big 3 of Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, I think were kind of the obvious ones. So we've mentioned a few others. I hadn't thought about Fantastic Four, so that's a good one.
Yeah. Daredevil too. We had 2 versions of Daredevil.
Yeah, and 3 kind of.
3.
No, maybe just 2.
Just 2.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm the 3rd.
I don't know what I was thinking of there.
That's right.
But I was thinking about Catwoman because here's I kind of made a stink earlier about the whole, how can Bruce Wayne be blonde? And yet Catwoman is a character that has been played by such a wide variety of a diversity of actors, like different races and different ages and different looks. I think that's pretty cool that there's a character that has been around a long, long time that has been able to have a lot of different looks and not, as far as I know, get that big outcry. Now, maybe it's because it's somewhat of a more minor character than Batman or Superman, but as far as I know, people aren't carrying torches and and throwing tomatoes because actor X is playing this character, and how can this character possibly look like that? I think that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So maybe we can revisit that one next year when the Batman comes out and we get to see Zoe Kravitz as
Selena Kyle. Yeah. I think that's a great spot. And one more that I totally forgot, and this could have significant impact with some announcements that have been made, but the Hulk.
Yes. Oh yeah. Right.
We've had a few versions of the Hulk, everything from Lou Ferrigno, right? Yeah. Painted green on TV to Mark Ruffalo, and there's some in between, but with it sounds like Planet Hulk is going to get a movie, and that's the rumor right now. So we'll have to see how that one pans out. And do we get Mark Ruffalo, or are they going to recast that? I would hope they'd stick with Ruffalo, for the continuity of everything.
Right. That'd be interesting to see how they do, because they kind of already did a piece of that storyline in Thor Ragnarok. But okay,
yes, they did. Pretty significant.
Yeah. But Flash is another one that we've seen a lot of different versions of.
There was a TV version of the
TV
Flash
show back in the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah. The very styrofoam padded suit.
Right.
That's a good one.
Yeah. I'm sure there are others. Who are we missing? But folks, send us some notes. And John, one more time, where can everybody find us?
You bet. You can find us on Spotify podcast, iTunes podcast, YouTube, Instagram at coffee_N_capes, Facebook, Twitter, and of course, you can always email us at supers@coffeeandcapes.com to let us know, on any of those channels, what do you think we should be talking about? What's important to you? What in geek culture, whether it's film, comic books, what have you, do you want to hear about? And we'll be happy to drink our coffee and spill our guts.
Exactly. So till next time, I'm Coffee, he's Capes. Wait, no, that's not how that works.
You never know. Could work that way. Never know.
Good. All right. Thanks for listening to Coffee and Capes. I'm Dave.
I'm John.
And we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.